I feel like this album, Siddharth, had a lot of Indian classical influences, and people who are listening to it may have never heard of that before or before seeing my tiny desk. The goal is to create a bridge between all the cultures that I have roots in and let that kind of make for magical moments.
What's going on? This is Ben from Real Ones. We're here at Lincoln Hall, a familiar haunt of ours, and we're joined today by
Sid Sriram.
Lovely to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yes, absolutely. I heard this was your first Chicago show. Is that true, or was that a fib?
No, we did one, like a small one a while ago. This feels like the first real one.
Yeah. What was that last one like?
Not like this.
Not like Yeah, fair enough. One thing that ties you to the city quite a bit is this video for the Hardway, which I've been watching a ton lately. All of these like Chicago juke influences. You got like a lot of local dancers involved. So tell me about the creation of that one and just like what about Chicago kind of spoke to you that made you want to incorporate that into the song?
Yeah, so I worked on the album in Minneapolis, and the whole album really felt like we just got hit by a creative wave and really followed it. And that song, that's an example of it, where the drums kind of just came together pretty organically, and they were really kind of pulling from juke and footwork kind of influences. And while we were making it, we knew that we wanted to somehow incorporate like actual footwork dances from Chicago into it. It's just really important to me to like kind of stay rooted in my culture, and in the process of making this, celebrating the roots of someone else's culture as well, and the coming together of that was really the goal. So it was beautiful coming out here for that.
I think it's like just thoughtfully paying tribute to, you know, a sound that you really enjoy. Like, is that something you were, you know, had in rotation like while you were younger, or is it something that just sort of came to life like in the creation of that song?
No, I mean, like, I feel like Chicago house was something that was big for me when I was in like high school. But my introduction to like footwork music and like juke was actually Chance when I was in college, and that was the first time I heard that. When we were making this, I worked with this producer named Ryan Olson, who's from Minneapolis, and it really came from us just being in the studio, just like trying different things out and just jamming different things out. And I still wasn't like super familiar with the form and the rhythmic kind of construct of footwork. But once this hit, it was like, oh, this really just works. And it felt like it really fit what we were talking about. So it was almost like an accident, and then really embracing it.
To hear that Chance was the introduction, he had like this Lucy with Skrillex back in like 2015, 2016, that kind of like reminded me of the what your interests are.
I remember that song.
Yeah. The instrumental breakdown like took me back to that time. So
For it up.
I didn't even live in the city then, but you know, that's like really when I was getting introduced to a lot of Chicago music and all that. But this tour is kind of leading into a few international dates, and then you're gonna play Coachella.
Yep.
How you feeling? You know, is that gonna be the biggest stage you've played to this point? Or?
So I have like another career that has kind of spanned about 10 years now, and that's in Indian film music. It's like the pop music of India, really. And those shows I've done have been really big, but with this music and my own original English language stuff, Coachella is probably the biggest stage, definitely the most prestigious stage. I'm excited. I feel like even today it was a cool testament to seeing a lot of Indian folks come out, but like a mixed crowd. I feel like the same thing's gonna happen in Coachella, and I'm excited. I can't wait.
Yeah. So you had really strong roots in the Bay Area, right? Like spent a lot of time there growing up. Yeah. And so how did you make your way back to? Were you living in India, or just kind of had a big presence over there? I'm guessing you were on the ground in some way. You know.
Sure. So I had a song that really blew up there in early 2016. So once that happened, I started living there 6 to 8 months out the year. And then that was till 2020, till the pandemic. And then I went back to the Bay to lock down with my folks in 2020 during the pandemic.
That would do it.
So that's what really kind of brought me back. And then I spoke about it a little bit today, but I just had this deep-seated need to create something other than what I'd been doing for the past basically 8 years. And that's what led to the creation of this album. And I recorded like all my vocals in the Bay, produced most of it in Minneapolis, Nashville, and Brooklyn.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at any point where an artist switches up their sound and what they're usually doing, it's sort of like you kind of have to figure out like, oh, what audience that I have already is going to kind of come with me to this new sound. Like,
for sure.
Do you feel like you put a lot of people on to new sounds and sonics like that were your existing fans?
Yeah, it's happening right now. A lot of the folks that come out know me from other songs.
Yeah.
You know, but we're turning them one by one into like, you know, in a good way. I feel like I come from a really diverse background of musical influences, and I want to be an ambassador for all of them. And the opposite too. I feel like this album, Siddharth, had a lot of Indian classical influences, and people who are listening to it may have never like heard of that before or before seeing my tiny desk. The goal is to create a bridge between all the cultures that I have my roots in, and let that kind of make for magical moments.
You did a tiny desk recently.
Yep.
What is something, you know, about just the tiny desk set or experience itself that people might not know?
there's no amplification. So all the mics that are set up are only for recording. So you have to play really quiet to get like a dynamic range. And we knew that going into it, but you get there and it's literally just the corner of an office. I was pretty nervous going into that because we have a lot of musicians in our band, especially that one had like 2 drummers and shit.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah. But we spent a lot of time preparing and we got there and it was one of the best experiences of my life. You know, you kind of see so many of the artists that you look up to or your peers on the platform, and it's been a minute that I've seen that. So to get there and to do it felt really, really special for sure.
Yeah. No, it's an amazing opportunity. It's something I feel like a lot of people kind of have as a bucket list
100%.
item. What's a kind of experience you've had, maybe like a message you've gotten from a fan or whatever, just an interaction that you will always remember?
So there's a song, Dear Sahana, on the album that had like this moment on Tiny Desk, and it was cool to see a lot of South Asian women gravitate towards the song because it had an Indian name and an English pop song, which they haven't really gotten to experience before. I got a ton of messages, but when we were in Minneapolis, a girl pulled up with a sign saying, "My name is Sahana," on it. That was just tight. Just she had she was beaming while holding it up. Yeah. That type of stuff is really cool. I feel like Indian folks have yet to really make a deep mark in the Western Hemisphere, you know, and it's something that I really take pride in doing, going beyond just representation, but really kind of putting that into action and to see that conversation turn into something that people really hold dear. That's been tight. So those messages, when I get them online, but in real life is way cooler for sure.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Right. Like literally somebody is like, oh, this song spoke directly to me. Yeah. Something they couldn't even control, like their given name, you know?
For sure.
That's amazing. I mean, have you felt like pressure at all to kind of Westernize your music in any sort of way when you've made your way into like this new sound, or do you feel like you've kept a lot of what's true about what you're doing? You know?
I feel like I've kept the soul and the source point of who I am very much vibrantly alive. Western forms of music, soul music especially,
right,
but also different forms of electronic music and stuff like that. They've been big influences. So to get to do this now is really exciting for me because I've been waiting for a minute to do it. I'm 33 now.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm really, I think, on most days at peace with myself. That's allowed me to not feel like I have to conform to anything, whether people want me to do something that feels more Indian or American or whatever. I'm having a good time exploring music and experimenting and trying things out, and I'm just happy that it's landing.
I'm hoping that, you know, when I reach that age, that I'm feeling the same way. It's like, man, fuck what y'all think. I'm gonna make what I want to make.
It's the goal, man, for sure.
James Blake just brought up this big thread of we're leaning toward, you know, cheaper music, right? We've been tricked, right? We've been taught to devalue it. What are your thoughts on that conversation overall? Like, do you feel like there needs to be radical change in order for artists to be better compensated for what they're doing?
Of course. I mean, we're not even considered in the whole economic scheme of this thing, and we're making the product. You know what I mean? It's honestly ridiculous. I'm still processing everything that he said because I saw those tweets came out like yesterday or 2 days ago?
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah.
Yeah, I was seeing them kind of in real time, but we've been on tour, so I'm still really digesting. But it's kind of like a no-brainer, you know. And it's time for change. And I do believe when things hit that breaking point, that change does really genuinely and deeply occur. So it's amazing that he articulated it so poignantly, and, you know, put it forth. I look forward to the change happening. I think it's going to happen now.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like more people are invested in it than ever, and at least, you know, the change has to come, you know. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm just glad we got to do this.
Absolutely.
Chicago is one of my favorite cities, and I know you guys are doing some real cool shit out here, so it's been good talking to you, man.
Amazing. Hey, likewise, you know, keep spreading the good word, you know.
Much love, man. Thank
you. Good luck on the rest of the tour.
Thank you.
Sid Sriram here on Real Ones. This has been Ben, and we'll catch y'all on a future interview. I don't know. I don't have a tagline for the end. I'll probably edit it out.